Hey everyone, and welcome to our newest Bikes Gear video, our 20,000 kilometer bike review. We are 4,700 meters high in the Peruvian Andes, and we are about to crack the 20,000 kilometer mark on our bicycle journey around the world, so we thought it's the perfect time to do a bike review with such an amazing landscape. We did our first bike review after 3,000 kilometers, then another one after 10,000 kilometers, and in this one we are going to talk about how all our equipment is lasting, if we're still happy with all our gear and the bikes, and go into a little bit of detail about everything, but not too much, because that would take forever. We are going to reference a few other videos though, also our Bikes and Gear playlist, which you can find up here, where we talk more specifically about many of the components and gear we're going to talk about in this review. Alright, before we talk about the specific components of our bikes, we want to talk a little bit about our philosophy. For a journey like this, cycling for several years around the world through really remote places, like right now for example, we wanted really sturdy but also really basic bikes. Bikes with no fluids, no hydraulics, no high-end gearboxes for example, nothing that could break, where we would have to go to some specialized shop to get it fixed. We wanted bikes that hopefully would last the whole journey, the whole 3-4 years around the world, and that we could fix ideally always ourselves. And so far this philosophy has actually worked out really well for our journey right now, because we have been able to fix any minor problem ourselves, completely ourselves, and actually most major problems ourselves as well. That being said, we haven't had that many problems to begin with, but we'll talk about all the problems we have had with our bikes, mechanical issues now when we talk about all the components. There is of course nothing wrong with high-end bikes and bikes with complex components. There are so many people around the world that are touring the world, doing crazy trips on bikes with very complex gearboxes, etc. And they are of course proving that it's possible. This, as I said, is our philosophy, and so far it's worked out really well for us. Alright, so let's begin with talking about my bike. A Wheeler 8700 trekking steel chromoly frame. I bought this bike secondhand off eBay for 400 euros, together already with the wheels, the rims, and a Shimano Dior LX, a very old drivetrain. And just like the drivetrain, the actual frame is very old as well. According to the previous owner, it's around 20 years old actually, but because he took very good care of it, it's in really good condition. This frame is made in Taiwan, and it's a double-butted chrome moly steel frame. Double-butted meaning that the tubing is thicker in parts where it needs to be and thinner where it does not need to be, making it lighter. We wanted steel frames because they are very basic, very strong, but also have a certain flexibility which you do not have in aluminum frames, which is nice when you don't have any suspension, that the steel flexes a bit more than say aluminum or carbon. Like I mentioned, I got this bike for 400 euros secondhand off eBay, and 400 euros is really not a lot of money for a really sturdy, really well-made touring bike. So now that I've told you about the frame, let's start talking about all the components, kind of going from front to back. The first thing I changed on this bike when I got it was that I added the Son 28 hub dynamo. This is a very reliable, very powerful hub dynamo that I actually laced into the front rim myself, and so far we're really happy with it. We use it in combination with the Busch & Müller USB-Werk USB converter to convert this electricity so we can to USB power, 5 volt USB power, so we can charge our phones, and also to power our Busch & Müller, in this case IQX headlight and also tail light LED lights. And the reason we do this is, and we want a dynamo, is not only to charge our phones when we're in really remote areas, but also because we don't want battery operated lights, because we have so many other things we want to charge or need to keep charged anyway, that it's nice to have light when you need it. The rims I have came with this bike. It's the These are the Zack, or from the company Ride, Zack 2000 rims with 36 spokes. They're 3-cross laced. And we wanted, that was very important for us, we wanted 36 spoke rims just because they make for really, really sturdy wheels. And so far, in over almost 20,000 kilometers now on really, some really rough roads, I have not had one single broken spoke. Then, staying at the front, we have the Tubus, both of us have the Tubus Tara steel rack. So far this is holding really well. It is starting to rust in a few little places, but nothing big. And as I mentioned, we wanted really basic bikes, no hydraulics, etc. So we have very basic Shimano V-brakes. And these are working perfectly fine. When it's wet or really cold and icy, the braking power is limited, but other than that, they're perfectly fine at stopping these 50 to 55 kilogram bikes. And very important, they're cable operated, so we can fix them, and we have fixed them on the road when brake cables have snapped. And the brake pads are easily available even in countries like Peru, Ecuador, for example, where you don't get a lot of bike shops, and when you do, they're usually very basic. And yeah, because these are pretty much the most basic brakes you can get the expendable parts for them anywhere as well. And last but not least, up the front here, the tires. We have the Schwalbe Marathon Plus Tour tires. My frame, it's a pretty old frame, so it only fits 47s. Unfortunately, Louisa's frame, also a very old frame, and Louisa will get to that later, only fits 42s, so very narrow actually for touring. But so far, yeah, we're really happy with them. This is our second set, or my second set already. The first set I did 12,000 kilometers on. The puncture resistance did decrease after a while, after around 7,000-8,000 kilometers, but so far on this set I've not had a single puncture. And because it's the Plus Tour variant, it also has a little bit of dirt texture, dirt profile. So it's also good for off-road. And we do have a separate video where we talk about just these tires. You can check that out up here. And yeah, I'm going to be referencing more videos up here when we get to them. Alright, let's continue with talking about the cockpit. We'll go from right to left to kind of keep an overview. Here we have our GoPro mounted on a SP Gadget swivel mount and a GoPro handlebar mount. This has worked super well the last 1.5 years essentially. You can turn it in any direction, and we use this every single day. Then I just have these aluminum horns, which is nice to kind of give your hand a different position. Also for climbing, it's really nice, and we're also really happy with these. These are our second set of grips. The first set we had were made out of cork or lined with cork, and we were actually really happy with them because when you sweat and so on, it didn't stick on your hands so much, but they wore out pretty quick. And then we replaced them with something we found in Ecuador, just these ergonomic, which is nice for the hands, rubber grips, and they are comfortable. It's just when it's hot, the rubber kind of sticks on your hand, and it's not as nice as the cork grips. Then we have a little USB horn here, electric bicycle horn, which we actuate here, which is pretty loud, and we've talked about this in our top 5 bike gadgets video, which you can find up here, I guess, somewhere here. And yeah, so we're really happy with this as well. As a little fun fact, this is USB rechargeable, but we've never recharged it in 16 months. It's crazy. Then we have quad lock for our phone here. Also pretty happy with this. It is sometimes a bit annoying to get it on with one hand, especially like right now, for example, if you're not in the exact right angle. But other than that, it's held up really well with the phone case for the iPhone 8. Then we have our iGP Sport IGS 320 GPS bike computer. We got this very recently after we got rid of our Cube bike computer because that was eating batteries like crazy, and this is USB rechargeable. But we are unfortunately not very happy with this, and we made a very detailed review of this bike computer about why we're not happy with it, and you can find that somewhere up here as well. Then handlebar bag, and underneath you can find the Busch & Müller USB Werk, which I talked about, which is the converter that allows us to charge our phones from our hub dynamos. And yeah, the handlebar bag. Then we have a feedback in here. This is great just because then it's super easy access to our water bottles. Also, when we have to spray water at dogs that are chasing us, but also as a little trash can. It's just super versatile. And yeah, I actually want to get another one and put it here, not for another bottle because that wouldn't work with the phone, but for just keeping random stuff in. But yeah, so far I haven't found one on the road yet, so I'll have to wait and see. And then last but not least, we have this little bungee cord here, which we use as our brake, paired with our walking stick as our kind of stand, or hiking pole as our stand mechanism. And then last but not least, on the left here, a little mirror. This is also from Busch & Müller, a German brand, I think. And yeah, this is super nice. I can switch to the other side when we're cycling in countries where we drive on the left, and it's just really, really easy and perfect to use. Let's continue with talking about the bottles. We have a 1.4 liter stainless steel bottle from the company Espit, which fits perfectly in this kind of XL top peak bottle holder. And then we also have a 1.5 liter thermos from a kind of no-name Greek brand. That's at least where we got it, in Greece. And the thermos, also mentioned in our top 5 bike gadgets video, is just incredible, because especially now when at night it's -5 or Celsius in the morning, it's we usually boil water in the evening, and then we still have a hot coffee in the morning. And yeah, this is, I think, one of our favorite components of all our gear is this thermos. Then down here we have a little 0.6 liter petrol bottle for our multi-fuel burner. We also have a cooking video if you're interested in that. Yeah, this is mounted down here because if this sometimes leaks, if there's a little bit of dirt in the O-ring, then you don't get petrol and everything else. It just goes to the bottom, and that's it. The saddle I have actually came with the bike. This is a leather saddle, but not from Brooks. It's from some unknown company. I can't really read the label anymore. This was really already worn in when I got it, and yeah, I've obviously used it quite a bit now, but it's still in pretty good condition. I wax it every 2 weeks approximately, and it is very comfortable, but I would never get a leather saddle again just because it's too much work. When it's raining, or yeah, just very moist, or it gets very brittle and I have to take care of it a lot, so it's just too much work for what it is. As you can see, this has a little bit of suspension, but I also have a suspended seat post. This is from a pretty unknown brand. I think it's called Matrix or something. And generally this is pretty good. It's a trapezoid, which is nice because it kind of goes in the right direction. I don't like the telescopic ones so much because it's in kind of suspending in the wrong direction. The only thing is these the joints here have, if I move the weight of it, you can see it's very loose because this is aluminum, cast aluminum as far as I know, and it's just over the time it's just being worn out. So I think I'll need to get a different one, if I can find one, where it has steel, where at least where the axles run, the joints run, it's made out of steel, because yeah, this isn't holding up so well, unfortunately. Alright, the drivetrain. So the derailleurs and the shifters are from the Shimano Dior LX series. This is a pretty old series, but it came with the bike. And so far, actually, the front shifter and both derailleurs are still with the second-hand components I got with the bike, and they're working really well. This is a 3x8 drivetrain, by the way. Only my rear shifter broke, unfortunately, pretty recently. I think 1,000 kilometers ago or so. But it was I was able to get a new 8-speed shifter in Peru, and so far it's working really well again. We have changed a few components, expendable components along the way. I think this is my 3rd or 4th bottom bracket. One unfortunately failed catastrophically in Texas, so we actually had to hitchhike. And this is a pretty basic square taper bottom bracket. But now this one is working pretty well, and maybe that was just a faulty component. We also changed our gearing over the time, and always going lower. Now I have a 22 to 34 lowest climbing gear, and that's almost still a bit too high for now these really steep and rough roads in the Andes. So ideal would be even lower. So I could think about upgrading to an even larger cassette, but yeah. We're actually thinking about upgrading our whole drivetrains to a 1x11 speed or 12 speed, but this is just a thought, just more out of curiosity to compare it to a 3x something drivetrain. At the front now I'm running a Shimano Altos triple, and this has worked really well, and just a very basic Shimano cassette at the back. We've used all kinds of chains over the last 16 months from Shimano, SRAM, and low-end components or no-name components that we've picked up somewhere along the way. And to be honest, we've hardly noticed any difference between the chains in their durability and how long they would last. To be honest, it's all kind of the same. And that's pretty much it. The only thing is now the rear derailleur. The pulleys are getting very worn out, so I'm probably gonna have to change those out. And the spring pushing the chain back is not as good anymore. So when the chain is very wet, for example, when we're riding in the rain, sometimes the derailleur jumps to the front just because the spring in the rear derailleur isn't powerful enough to really pull the chain back anymore when the chain is not moving super fluidly. That's also one of the reasons we're thinking about completely changing our drivetrain, but we'll see in future. So far it's working really well and has worked really well. We have gone through quite a few pedals the last 16 months actually, from Walmart pedals which we picked up in an emergency along the way, to Cube pedals which we started with, all flat pedals, and the ones we have now we've had for around 2,500 kilometers, but in pretty intense conditions, very rocky roads, but also a lot of dust, a lot of water, a lot of ice, and so on. And to be honest, these have held up really well. The bearings still feel really good. The problem we had with the previous ones was always that the bearings weren't sealed, so the water would get in there and just wash out all the grease. And the effort of maintaining them really wasn't worth it because it would happen so often. With these ones now, they have a little bit of rubber around the bearings, so they're sealed better and protected better from the elements, and so far these are holding up really well. And the replaceable little screws which provide the traction are also really grippy, and we're really happy with them. Okay, second to last thing we're going to talk about are all the panniers, but only very briefly because we have a separate video about our panniers. Before we used to cycle, when we started this trip, with a combination of VD and Ortlieb panniers. Now all our panniers are from the Ortlieb Free series, so PVC free. And the reason we changed to only Ortlieb is because all the seams started opening up on our VD panniers. Actually, a few seams also opened up on the Ortlieb panniers we had previously, but because we talk about it in great detail in this video, we're not going to talk more about it now. We are happy with the Ortlieb Free Series panniers we have right now. That's all we're going to say. And last but not least, the guitar, also packed in a Ortlieb dry bag, or more specifically, the guitar rack. We have, like with everything else, a separate video about how we built this guitar rack. We custom built it from an aluminum, essentially rear rack, which is mounted out the back, 90 degrees out the back. And on the Colombian death road a few months ago, this unfortunately broke. The aluminum rack snapped, the aluminum snapped, but we were actually able to get it welded, and it did hold for a long time, but now the Peruvian roads have snapped it again at the weld. But this time we fixed it with the cable ties, and it's holding for now, at least. And what we're probably going to do is, when we get to La Paz in Bolivia in about a month's time, we're going to replace this aluminum part with the steel part, if we can get the steel rack in La Paz. So it's hopefully then built for more sturdy for these rougher roads here in South America. So 20,000 kilometers on this bike and it's still holding up really well. Like I said, I have had hardly any problems, no broken spokes, nothing on this bike. I'm super happy with it, super happy with the fact that it's a very basic bike and I can fix it either myself or get it fixed anywhere in the world. And yeah, now Louisa is gonna talk about her bike.
So there's not that much left to talk about for me because we do have a lot of similar components, but of course some of my stuff on my bike is different. It also has gotten a little bit windy now, so I hope the sound is still alright. So as you can see, I do have a different frame than Tobi. I also got it second-hand off eBay. It was a bit more expensive. It cost about, I think, 550 euros. And it's also a steel frame and also maybe 15 to 20 years old. I'm not quite sure about that. My frame is from the German brand Hercules and it's also chromoly steel and double-butted just as Tobi's. As you can see, it has a low entry and those frames do have the reputation of not being as stable, but so far it's holding up quite well and I really like this. As I said, it's quite old, so the frame doesn't have that much space for bigger tires, so I'm only able to fit 42 millimeters. It would be nicer to have a bit more space for wider tires, so we could also run a bit lower pressure, so it would be more comfortable off-road. And speaking of the tires, let's go to the rims. We have 28-inch 622 rims, or also known as 700C. I also have 36 spokes and I do have different rims though, from a different brand, both from Mavic, but they are different. My front one is also a double-walled rim and it's holding up very well, also the spokes. But recently I started to have some issues with my back rim. It's not double-walled, also has 36 spokes though, and yeah, I don't know, maybe 1,000 kilometers ago, some spokes started to break, and in the end we ended up changing the whole side behind the cassette of the spokes. Well, Tobi changed it, and we actually do have all the tools and spokes to do that ourselves, just on the road with us. We also have a separate video about that, which you can find up there. So if I'm able to get a new rim, a double-walled rim, also with 36 spokes, then I would definitely get that because, yeah, I'm fearing that at some point also this rim might break. Yeah, as I said, we changed out the whole side, but it was actually only 2 spokes that actually broke, but many of them were also a bit bent, so we thought it's better to change the whole side. And speaking about broken stuff, actually only about a week ago, the eyelet of my frame on the back broke, which is holding the rack. So essentially the whole rack broke down and we had to find a solution for that. And we did find one which is holding up so far. We just fixed the rack to the axle, and we're not so sure if that's the best to do, but as I said, so far it's holding up well. And if it continues like that, we're just gonna buy a second axle, just a spare one, to be able to change that out in case it breaks. Of course, as I mentioned, it is a steel frame, so we also could consider just to weld the eyelet back on the frame. Yeah, we'll just have to see how it goes. So I have a different saddle than Tobi. It's not leather, but it's the Terry Physio gel saddle for women, and I am very happy with it. It's quite comfortable. It has some small hole in here for some air, and also I don't have to wax it or anything. It doesn't matter if it gets wet, so I don't have to care about it at all. And I have a suspension seat post as well, but unlike Tobi, it's a telescopic one. So far I'm quite happy with that as well. My drivetrain is also different from Tobi's. My derailleur and the shifters are from the Shimano Dior XT series, so a bit newer, but to be honest, we haven't noticed a big difference between those two series. I also have a 3x9 speed, 24x36. So far I've run through 2 bottom brackets, this is the second crank, and the third cassette. But I guess in maybe a month I'm gonna change all of that again. And finally, let's go to the front once more to talk about my cockpit, which is slightly different from Tobi's. As you can see, I also have the same GoPro mount as he does. The grips are the same, but the horns are a bit bigger. They're from the brand Ergotech, and I really like that I'm able to grip here and also here. It's very nice for climbing. And I do have 2 feedbacks because my frame doesn't fit 2 bottles as Tobi's does. So I have 2 bottles here, and yeah, I really like this because, as Tobi said already, you have very fast access to the bottles, and that's really good. I have the same bungee here for holding the brake, and I have a different phone mount than Tobi has. I don't have the quad lock, it's just some rubber bands. It's not that great, one rubber already broke, and I'm looking for a different one, but so far I haven't found anything. Also, I do have a mirror as well. It's a different one than Tobi's, but yeah, in the end it does the same thing. Rapid change of scenery. We are in a hotel in Lima and there's a lot of traffic outside, so please excuse the noises. Actually, 1 week after we recorded the video, still on the Peru Great Divide Trail, my front rim broke. Ironically, the front rim, because that was the newest one, and as I said, I actually just wanted to replace my rear rim. Well, the rim broke a few kilometers before a town, so we could push there, and then we took a bus here to Lima to get some replacement parts. And yeah, it actually looks like the 20,000 kilometers and rough roads and the V-brakes really took their toll on our rims. And yeah, we checked all the rims now, and because they also showed a lot of wear already, we decided to replace all 4 rims just to prevent them breaking within the next 1,000 kilometers. Yeah, just to be on the safe side. We actually found a dealer that has rims with 36 spokes, and they're now, our hubs are getting laced in right now. So yeah, this is now the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you could take something with you, some information about our philosophy and our bikes. Yeah, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you have any comments for us, just leave them below. See you in the next video.